Okay, so this video is going to be the recording for the spider exercise. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a look at my Maya interface. And here on the top, what I'm going to have is going to be my poly modeling tab. If I click on this thing, I can just click on the cylinder, and that is going to be bringing a cylinder right at the center of the screen. So I can zoom in, just take a look at this thing. When I select that, in the input tab here on the side, I get to see all of the components of the individual cylinder. See, here on the side, I have many different workspaces. We talked about these in a different lecture or another video, but I'm going to be working with general, which is the default. Now, because of that, I'm not entirely sure if you're going to get to see all of these individual things that I have on the side. So I hit them because I want to enable them now. The first one is going to be the channel layer box, which is basically like, you know what, select this thing and talk about the different things that you have done to the shape. Here, I'm going to have the cylinder, and I get to say something like, give me 40 subdivision levels, and this is going to make it larger. In the sense of subdivisions, that is. And I can say something like make M3, and that is going to make a cylinder out of 3 sides. So for us, we're going to be working with something like, let's say 12. That way, I get to work with something that is symmetrical on the x-axis, right? So that was the first one. Now, if I want to modify the camera selection, I have to work with the tool selection panel. So that is going to be this one here. I'm going to click that, and that is going to be my tools and settings. So once I have that, notice here all the way to the left that I have my move selection. But if I select this thing in here, I can just go to the component mode by saying right click and hold and say something like, I want to select faces. So if I click on each one of these individual faces, I get to select the faces. If I select these things on the top, I'm basically selecting all of the faces, but if you think about it, I'm also selecting the ones on the other side. And that has to do with the camera-based selection. So if I click on disable that and I do this, when I turn these around, oh, that was not, sorry, it was this one here, camera-based selection, the first option on the top. When I select these, it's only the ones that I can see that are going to get selected. So from my point of view, I could only select these guys. And that's why I was only able to select those. So something like this is only going to select these, but not everything on the other side. So that is something I may care about, but at this point is not really something that I want to do. So I just wanted to show you that tool selection panel, how to modify the properties, and then you'll find that all the way here on the corner. Okay, so because of that, I have many different things that I can modify. I will select by vertex. So I'm going to select this thing. I'm going to press W, and that is going to let me move up and down. But I want you to take a look at a different thing here that I have in my tool selections. And that is going to be this option here, soft selection. If I expand that and click on soft selection, the color change, notice how I have now a ramp that goes from yellow to red. Yellow is going to be the more affected, and red is going to be the less affected, and then everything that is not colored is not going to be affected at all. But notice what happened here. So I still move the vertex, but I am also moving the other vertices around that vertex. If I disable that soft select, it is only going to be this one. If I enable that soft select, that is going to be moving all of these guys. And this is going to be one of the most common issues that you will see because the hotkey for this is B as in black. That is going to enable and disable the selection. And if I take a look at that in my keyboard, B is right above the spacebar, which is what I use to switch between different views. So it's really common to hit B by mistake. And because of that, you may jump into the situation in which you're moving all of your shape, even though you didn't want to move your shape. All right, so that is the first thing. Now, one thing that I can do is scale this object down. And if I go past 0, everything is going to turn black. And I mean, you don't want that because your normals are reversed. What do I mean with my normals are reversed? If I go inside of the shape, everything is facing inwards instead of backwards. That is just because I basically mirror the faces too much. So I'm going to move this thing a little bit down. And what I'm going to do with this is just leave it like this. All right. The next thing that I'm going to do is I will select the whole object. And what I will do is enable my symmetry here on the top. See, right under where it reads Arnor or help on the top, there is an option that says geometry. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say, I will enable my symmetry for my object on the or the world on the x-axis. So everything that I do on the right, if I select this face and move it up, is going to affect the other side. That way, I am basically going to save some time by just cheating my way through it. So this is going to be a spider, right? Spiders are going to have 8 legs, typically. So when I select one from here and holding shift and double click from to here, that is going to select 4 on this side and 4 on that side. Now what I'm going to do is say Control E, again, as in Ernest. What that is going to do for me is it's going to let me pull from the center. Now, that doesn't really look like spider legs. What I need to do is disable keep faces together. So click on that and move it to off. And then you're going to be able to select these beautiful spider legs. Now, if I click on the box right at the center, that is going to let me make them larger or smaller. What I want to do is want to make them larger and push them backwards. So make them go forward, make them larger, and make sure that your faces are separated in such a way that your spider legs look kind of like this. Okay, so it doesn't matter how much you do, but what I don't want you guys to do is make them look something like that, right? So you can do this or you can do this, and come to think about it, it's better if you just leave them like this because we're gonna be making some joints of articulation. So once I have that, that is basically it for that part. But I want to say Control E once again so I can make more spider legs. You see that? Now, when I move my spider legs like that, I'm just basically make them go to that place, that location. I'm gonna scale them down so they move like this. And it doesn't really matter, like we are really eyeballing what this is going to look like. But now that I'm done with moving them more or less out of the way, what I'm going to do is press W. So now my selection goes like this. So W as in move. And now I can move my spider legs up into this direction. All right. Okay, beautiful. Now that I have these guys here, what I'm gonna do is I will disable for a second my world symmetry. So I'm gonna go back here on the top and I'm gonna say off. So what I'm gonna do with this one is I'm gonna select all of the individual faces at the tip of the legs, just like that. And I'm going to say Control E once again for extrusion, and that is going to show you the full widget, right? I didn't see the full widget earlier. I only saw an arrow and a cube at the beginning because that was in symmetry mode. But now if I push this one a little bit further, notice how I can make some beautiful rectangles that are just going to work exactly like what I intend them to be, right? So I'm going to move them a little bit further, and then I'm going to click on the cube so I can have a new cube at the center. See, if I move it, there's no cube at the center, but if I click on the cube, any of the 3 cubes, that is going to make a new cyan cube appear in the center, and I can make it larger. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that a bit larger. Control E, and I'm going to be pushing them a little bit like this. Control E, I'm going to be pushing them a little bit like that, and then clicking on the cube and making them a little bit like this. It's going to be sort of like my spider knee. All right. So I'm going to be pushing them back from the blue arrow just a little bit like this. And the last thing that I'm going to do here is another Control E. And I'm going to push the spider legs like so. But then what I want to do is press W. So I go back to my move transformation. And then I'm going to move all of the spider legs down. So that's how I do my spider. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do, like your exercise is mainly done at this point. If I select the vertex and press V, I can just move this one a little bit up to make that a little bit rounder. I want to do that with the bottom one to make it a little bit rounder shape here as well. I can, yeah, I can select this one, shift select the one on the bottom, and then just scale them a little bit. And that is going to make it look a little bit rounder. But I'm going to make the fangs. So I'm going to press B once again, and I'm going to hold, I'm going to select my object. It's an object. And then I'm going to move down to faces. I'm going to select this one and this one. Now let's make the fangs. I'm going to move forward, Control E, click on one of the cubes, and then make them smaller. That's gonna make it look like this because I have keep faces together. I want to separate those faces. So off, and that is gonna make these sort of eyes. Then I'm gonna move it forward, then Control E again, move it forward, and this time around I'm just gonna make them super small, something like this, and then I'm gonna move them down, and those are gonna be the fangs of my spider. All right. So with that, if I want to make a tail, I will select the faces on the back, Control E. As you can see, the whole exercise today was basically Control E all the way. And then I will be moving them sort of like that. And I'm going to be scaling them up. Now, if I want to select a single vertex, you are in the selection mode, right click and hold, then go to the vertex, and then you just click on the vertex. If you want to select an edge, you just say edge and select the edge. If you want to select a face, you say face and select a face. So that's the only thing that you have to do. If I select that one, probably this one here as well, because it's a rather weird looking tail. It's gonna look something like that. I want to make these vertices on the bottom. So all of these three vertices on the bottom, just move up. And in order to make this one a little bit rounder, I'm just gonna be pushing it up. And I'm really just eyeballing that one, okay? One thing that I can do, like that is the exercise, that's it, that's the only thing you have to submit. But if you wanna make this thing a little bit rounder, the only way that you can do that is by inserting a little bit more edges here. So I can say, I will use this time to use an insert edge loop tool that is going to be doing in my mesh tools, insert edge loop. And I want to do that with the options. Options are these square that I see at the end. So click on that edge loop and make sure that you have equal distance from edge and multiple edge loops. I want to have only one, actually, just like that. And let's see, I want to select relative distance from edge. No, it's multiple edge loops and it's going to be just one. So that and that. Now be careful because notice this is a quad, but this one here is a mess. Okay, so be extra careful whenever you're inserting edge loops, what is or how is going to be affecting your shape. This one here is a quad, even though it looks like a triangle, it is not because I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 edges. Okay, so that is how I inserted some edges. If I click on this, it's gonna go all the way and start adding some more faces. One thing that I want to do by inserting that, and again, this is totally optional, your exercise was done as soon as you pull on the spider tail, is going to be selecting these edges. So from here to here and from here to here. And I'm going to go to my edit mesh, and there is an option under edge called edit edge flow that is going to generally try to make it rounder, but it's not having the desired effect at this point. See, it's doing that weird thing. And now we'll need to sort of do that manually. In some cases, I don't have enough information to do that too. Sorry, I think we are out of time, actually. So that is the exercise for today. And I'm going to stop this recording.